Hello and welcome to the Doula Debrief podcast from Community Doula Alliance. We're your hosts, Marnellie Bishop and Allie Buchanan, two Portland-based doulas in the Portland metropolitan area. In the Doula Debrief podcast, we're going to take a deep dive into birth work with interviews, conversations, and discussions on hot-button issues surrounding childbirth in the birthing landscape of today's society. Join us twice a month for resources that empower and advocate for the future of maternal health. To learn more about our organization, visit us at communitydoulaalliance.com.
In today's episode, we are interviewing Kimberly Porter, she/her, Executive Director of the Community Doula Alliance, to learn more about the nonprofit organization.
We are so excited to have Kimberly Porter, Executive Director of Community Doula Alliance, with us here today on the Doula Debrief podcast. She is a fearless leader, trailblazing change agent, whose mission is to create a society where all children are born with equal opportunities for a healthy start by creating a racially diverse doula workforce to provide culturally specific maternal care for Black, Indigenous, Latino AX, Asian, and other racially and linguistically diverse underrepresented families. She is a community-based mental health therapist, early childhood mental health consultant, infant, toddler, parent, and perinatal mental health psychotherapist, PSU adjunct professor, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board Chair of the Oregon Infant Mental Health Association, founder of the Sacred Roots Doula Program at the Black Parent Initiative, Vice President of the Portland Doula Association, and current standing Diverse Communities Board Chair of the Oregon Doula Association. She lives in Beaverton with her adult son and teenage daughter and enjoys cooking, diverse dishes, traveling abroad, and reading and engaging in thought-provoking discussion with friends over dinner. Welcome to the podcast, Kimberly.
Thank you, Marnellie. Thank you, Allie.
So, we're here to talk about Community Doula Alliance. Can you tell us, how did the organization start?
Well, there's a lot to that. That's a let's unpack that. So I received my training in 2014. I wanted to have a cultural experience in terms of being a doula, so I got trained by South African doulas. That was back in 2014, and then shortly after that, I got trained at International Center for Traditional Childbearing with Sophia Monroe. And so then after that, that's when I was introduced to Birth and College at Midwifery. I was able to meet three of the founders that are currently the founders of the Community Doula Alliance. So the founders are Raven Nolan, who's a program coordinator over at Birth and College at Midwifery, Mariah Fairchild at Bridgetown Baby, and then Brooke Noley, who's a co-founder and co-owner of Birth First Doulas. So and there's a couple other doulas that were involved, and so we just wanted to have something different. We had done, the research, and we really looked at some of the doula trainings. And for me, as a doula of color, I didn't see that represented. I didn't see the cultural rooted trainings. And so, I partnered with Raven. Raven and I had, we were friends. And then, I had sent some of my doulas from Sacred Roots Doula Program over there to get training. And a lot of it is because we had already had trainings. Those three people that I talked about, we had already gone through different doula trainings. And so we decided that we wanted to have something that was more comprehensive and not just a weekend doula training. Because as you all know, that's just not enough training for anyone. And so we decided we wanted something that was more comprehensive, something that was more culturally rooted, something that not just core competency skills, but really how the day-to-day work as a doula. So that's we all came together. And so we just decided, what can we do? We already looked at what was already out there. So we wanted to come together and create our own doula training, which would consist of the birth, postpartum training. And so we decided we already had experience. Some of us had experience in nonprofits, especially me. I've been in nonprofits for about 29 years. So I was I have a lot of experience of how to be from the ground level up, from working as an entry level social worker in nonprofits, but then also before I became executive director of Community Doula Alliance, I was a director of early childhood programs. So it was just a matter, and it's a charitable organization, it's tax exempt, we could have a lot of funding opportunities and things like that. So we decided to become a nonprofit. And that's pretty much how we started the Community Doula Alliance.
Yeah, which is one of the ways that I learned about you was through doula networks. And when we met at a Portland Doula Association meeting, we were there to talk about two different things. I was there to talk about social media. Kimberly, you were there to talk about business and finance. And it was one of those situations where we kind of looked at each other and like, oh, we're the only brown people in this room.
I'm going to take you back a little further. Do you remember we were on a PDA call right after George Floyd happened? And you were giving a talk about how to address these changes in an organization. And do you remember we were sitting there on the call listening and we're texting each other, who's this Kimberly Porter? We need to, do you remember that?
No.
Oh my gosh. So we were both having this discussion and we were like, we need to like connect with Kimberly. Like she is, we could tell on the call, this was a force that something is going to happen. Like we felt that change from you. And I think, in your bio, like hearing just how this Community Doula Alliance is going to be that change agent for workforce development, like knowing that, yes, most doulas are coming into this as a calling, but really giving them the staples to be sustainable in the community is, I think, so powerful when you're looking at like the mission and vision of the organization. But like, I remember that from the call, and this was like,
that's crazy because I don't. I think that I'm a person with a pretty good memory.
Yes.
And so for me, the first time I interacted with Kimberly was at a Portland Doula Association meeting, an in-person, but for you, it was then a virtual meeting. It was
I don't know if you were VP yet.
I don't think I probably was.
I don't think
just
you
became
were.
VP this year.
Yeah.
At the Portland Doula Association. Yes. Yes.
It was right before you became VP. And I just remember we were texting back and forth because we were on the call, the webinar. And I just remember that.
Thank you for jogging my memory. I would not have remembered that. Yeah. And what an important time to like learn more about this incredible person here.
Absolutely.
So, one, thank you, Kimberly, for bringing us both myself, Marnellie, and she herself, Allie, into the fold of, the growth and starting of the Community Doula Alliance. Yeah. We feel really honored and privileged to be working with you. And so tell us a little bit more about, Allie kind of touched on what the mission and vision of Community Doula Alliance. Talk about it through your lens. What was, when you were sitting with the founders, you're drafting out this mission and vision. It probably went through a lot of iterations to finally get to what it was.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, Raven and I, who, like I said, you'll talk with her a little bit later, that she was a program coordinator over at Birthing Way. So we had many conversations. Like I said, I had sent a lot of the African-American women that wanted to be doulas over to Birthing Way because I wanted to have them to have a more comprehensive doula training, birth doula training in particular, but later postpartum because they're full circle doulas, so they do both. So we had many conversations of what is needed, what is lacking here in the Portland doula training, like the community. And so, one was doulas of color. I mean, that's the biggest one. And then, having trainings that could be more community based. And so hence that's why we have the word Community Doula Alliance, because it's an alliance between, 3 other entrepreneur women. And then it's part of the community because we want our doulas to be in the community. We're connected to the community. Doulas of certain racial backgrounds, certain linguistic backgrounds, things like that. So I think for us, it was more because the other two, all 3 of the founders except for me are actually instructors. They're actually birth and postpartum doula instructors. And so for me, I'm more of the visionary. I'm the one that's kind of like, okay, let's take all the different pieces. So we have, the training part of it, we have the cultural diversity part of it, then we have the nonprofit, the fiscal part of it, like how to be able to manage a nonprofit as opposed to an agency. So there was a lot of conversations as to if we wanted to be an agency, if we just wanted to be a collective, if we wanted to be a nonprofit. So we just decided that to kind of couple the two, that we have these 3 instructors, like I said, Mariah, Brooke, and Raven, that are more doula instructors, and then Raven being a program coordinator. She has a really good background in that, and then me coming in with just a vision of what it would look like, and being able to articulate our mission. And our mission basically is to professionalize community doulas and to be able to have representation. I mean, the Community Doula Alliance is led by a Black woman, and I am that Black woman. And so that, that within itself.
I am she.
Yes, that within itself is unique, because most of the agencies that you see in Portland are white owned and operated. And so that's different. That's a for-profit, whereas we're a nonprofit and it's Black led. So I think having, you don't have to talk to me about diversity and inclusion. I represent that because of the fact that I'm in this leadership position. So I think for us is to really just decolonize and dismantle the kind of what people had historically seen of doulas. And they mainly had seen white doulas. And so I think for me, the part that I bring into the Community Doula Alliance is that to have that diversity, to have representation from the leadership, from the board to, me being executive director, to our doulas. Everything that we do, we want to make sure that women of color are in a leadership position on some level, or at least they have a kind of a collective impact decision making as to everything that we do in the organization.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it was, I think after we met at that Portland Doula Association meeting, then I reached out to you at some point and said, hey, I am interested in whatever you're doing. And then you kind of high level spoke about, I'm working on this thing. And then I said, okay, you let me know. You let me know when you're ready. I'm there for whatever it is. And then I don't know how long after. And she's like, Marnellie, I'm ready. And then I said, what do you need?
Well, I think for me as a visionary, we're always ready. It's about finding the right people that are also ready. And so I think that's where this is, the Community Doula Alliance is so unique and so sacred to me, is because it's people that really are about this work. So like I said, I mean, just as a visionary, you always have these thoughts in your mind, but it's like, okay, how to make this come to fruition? Right. Like, who are the people that are going to be dedicated? And I felt like you were one of those people. You are one of those people. And so, yeah, it was shortly after. I mean, it was within a couple weeks, maybe less than that we actually, I said, okay, Marnellie, let's do this. This is what it looks like. This is what we need in terms of operationalizing our organization. We need to set up an infrastructure and things like that, because I think when you're starting a new nonprofit from the ground up, you have to set the infrastructure in place. And the best way to do that is have a fiscal foundation, which is where you come in as Director of Finance and Operations and things like that. So,
oh, I'm that person?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
no, I knew that. I knew that.
So leading into, how can people support this organization fiscally, what are the different ways?
There's a lot.
Yes, there's a lot. Well, like we have, our Facebook, we have our Instagram, but Facebook is mainly where we have our rally page. People can be free to write checks. They can be involved in our boards. We are looking for, board members that are actually, dedicated and committed to this work. We definitely have a racial equity and economic justice kind of a framework in how we do our work. I think that's why it's so unique, because it's not just about hiring doulas, it's about hiring doulas that really want to do this work, right, that are committed to making a change. And so I think I didn't say that part, but Community Doula Alliance was also created to address a public health issue in the African American Indigenous community to reduce these disparities as relates to infant and maternal mortality and morbidity rates. So it wasn't just about the agency, it's about our context and our framework is very focused on addressing a public health issue. And I think a lot of that was where I come in with my social work background, understanding mental health, understanding race, understanding racism, understanding barriers and things like that. I think so. Yeah, I think all of us coming together as founders, and then also Marnellie coming on later, just gave us that richness of what we needed to do to move forward. And I think we're very progressive and innovative in our approach.
Yeah. So she mentioned following us on Facebook, following us on Instagram. We do have a rally page where you can make donations. Ideally, you have the option to make a recurring donation. So we do have a couple donors on our rally page that are every month, all of a sudden I see this person has donated this amount of money, and that's incredible.
Yes.
Because it's all of these little small financial
breadcrumbs
that build our organization. So the onset of we started the rally page, and our goal for the end of 2020 was to raise $20,000. And we did that.
Yeah.
And that's incredible and
Yes.
amazing. And through those monies, we've been able to set up this infrastructure, hire and consult with legal nonprofit support, get all of our contracts and things ready to go, and then for Kimberly to have that opportunity and the kind of the backing to go to various Medicaid organizations and get funding for our doulas.
And bring in, right, the first class. I believe we have
First cohort of doulas.
First cohort of doulas. And I also wanted to say, I know you talked about the fundraiser that we had in November to raise $20,000, but also, I think we were really blessed to start off our organizations with $100,000.
Yes.
And so one of our doulas was a postpartum doula for this, actually our funder, of $100,000. They're a couple. And they said that, they're an affluent white couple here in Portland, and they have some challenges with their birth experience. And they said, I can't imagine what it would be like if we were African American or if we were a family of color or low income. And so we want to give you this $100,000. So we are so thankful to the Simone and Andrew Litschke
Yes.
for being able to donate and believe in our mission and our vision. So we've had a lot of support, like you were saying about, there's some people that will go to their employer and say, I just need you to take $20 out and we're seeing this every paycheck. So this is a community effort. That's why the word Community Alliance is such a big, sacred word for us, because that's what we've been able to do. We couldn't be sitting here right now if it wasn't for the community donation and blessings that we've, received from people that really believe in what we're doing.
And I think to add on to the community are those partnerships that we have with different organizations within the Portland metro area. Rose City Development, the Baby Booster Program, Healthy Births Initiative, some of those other organizations that you spoke to during Black Maternal Health Week. We are creating this foundation of community so that as of right now, when these doulas set foot on the ground and support our community, they know who Doula Alliance is before words come out of their mouth.
Right.
Absolutely.
That we're here for the community, that we're here to make change for underrepresented communities.
Absolutely.
And I kind of want you to talk a little bit about why we say Black, Indigenous, Latino AX, Asian.
Linguistic diversity.
Yes, racially and linguistic diversity. Because why do we do that rather than the term BIPOC or BIMPOC or the small word? Why are we naming them all?
Well, I think it's important to differentiate because in the birth community, the needs of an Indigenous pregnant person is going to be different than an African American pregnant person. And so I just feel like it's disrespectful, honestly, to kind of put everybody in one category. And so I think for me as an executive director, it's like I want to be clear about who our audience is. We are definitely an organization that we are supporting doulas, but we also are supporting families. And so it's like we have to prioritize. And so, yes, the public health issue is to address the disparities between African Americans and Indigenous folks. But we are working with Latinas and Asians and other marginalized communities as well. So it's around an equity strategy, which is prioritizing who's most in need. And we know that the disparities are worse in the African American community. Mm-hmm. So I think for me is to be very clear when we say our Community Doula Alliance, and we're saying, and especially for me coming in, having, like you talked a little bit about, the boards that I'm on those boards because I'm talking about diversity, mm-hmm. and real diversity, not just having a face up on a agency website because you you checked off the Black box, you checked off the Indigenous box, but to actually say, we see you Black doulas, we see you Indigenous doulas, we see you Asian doulas, and so we want to, so I think that's pretty much of why I wanted to kind of stay away from that word BIPOC. I wanted to give respect and homage to those doulas, is to say who we're talking about in specific.
And I think it goes to, there's different lived experiences. So you can have, an affluent Black individual, but still have the same experience in the birth world. When they step into that healthcare, it doesn't matter where they came from. So like, it's inclusive of all of the boxes that one person may check. It's not just the color of your skin. It's socioeconomic. It's your language. I mean, I love that is specifically in there, because you're not going to be able to navigate the system if you can't understand what is going on.
Right.
So it's wonderful to have that piece.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, later on in the podcast, we're going to be talking to Raven, our program coordinator, who's building a curriculum for one of our programs, which is the Portland Doula training. And that linguistic component is very important to us. So we'll be kind of working with a cohort of Swahili-speaking individuals that want to become doulas. And we have a Swahili-speaking instructor that's going to work alongside Raven to create this curriculum that is culturally and linguistically specific to those individuals. And that's hard to do. Or that's hard to, it's a lot, it's work to do that. And when you can relinquish that power and say, okay, you tell me how we need to build this curriculum to focus on your specific culture, because there's definitely a foundation of what a doula does, but how then can you make it culturally specific?
Right. And I think we're gonna have another interview with Kimberly Porter, and we're gonna discuss more about the Diverse Doula Project, and then another episode interviewing Raven for the Portland Doula training. So definitely, we're excited to hear more.
Yes.
And
that's the show.
How do we end it?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, here's how we end it. Kimberly. Thank you so much for making this organization. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today to talk with us about how Community Doula Alliance got started. Please be sure to look in the show notes to find all of the links to where you can donate to our organization or become a part of our organization, because this organization does not exist without the community support of all of those that want to see this change for maternal doulas and maternal health and the Portland community. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to the Doula Debrief podcast from Community Doula Alliance. It is our 1-year anniversary, and we are so excited to celebrate with you. You can show your support by visiting our Instagram page at communitydoulaalliance.com, clicking the link in our bio, where you will be sent to an online ordering form where you can purchase your very own Community Doula Alliance water bottle and pens. By making your purchase, you are in support of our vision to decolonize the birthwork profession and eliminate the gap in maternal-infant health disparities and inequities that disproportionately impact Black, Indigenous, and Latino AX communities. Thank you so much for your support. We look forward to seeing you out in the community.
Thank you for tuning in and being with us. Marnellie Bishop, Allie Buchanan is your host of the Doula Debrief podcast from Community Doula Alliance. Please subscribe and listen to this and other episodes on your podcatcher of choice. Like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and don't forget to ring the bell. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Community Doula Alliance to keep up to date on this show and future CDA events. So thank you again. We'll meet you around the block. Community Doula Alliance, out.